Welcome back. This video will be part 2 of Chapter 10, Experimental and Quantitative Psychology for PSY 120, Careers in Psychology, Neuroscience, and Human Development. So what kind of coursework do you need to prepare for those bachelor's level, entry-level careers in these spaces? Some of them are obvious. So the more experimentally oriented types of courses like research methods and statistics, quantitative psychology, psychometrics, psycholearning, sensation and perception, experimental, and cognitive psychology are obvious choices here, but also courses in developmental and abnormal psychology can be useful, especially if you're going into those behavior technician or behavior analyst assistant positions. In terms of elective coursework, many of these career paths are very computer and technology dependent. So I've had students in the past who were double majors or had minors in computer science along with psychology, getting a lot of training in using various software and applications, database systems, information systems management, and programming languages. I've also had many students over the years who get additional training in business, either in a minor or a second major, in areas like accounting, economics, finance, business administration. For applied experiences, there are lots of workplaces where you can seek out internships if you have interest in these areas. Accounting firms, finance firms, insurance companies, even social service agencies often need people who are well-versed in the research side that we train our psychology majors and neuroscience majors to be very skilled in. What kind of research experiences can you seek out? These are some of the obvious choices. You can look toward your experimental faculty, your cognitive faculty with interest in psychometrics and validation of measures. But also, I would encourage you to look for faculty in business and computer science who are engaged in research that is in that kind of hybrid space involving human behavior. What are some of the opportunities with a graduate degree? Well, on the practice side, there's the BCBA or Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Behavior analysts are going to, as we talked about in the first section of the chapter, they're going to apply learning principles like operant conditioning designed to change specific problematic behaviors or to add new behaviors that can enhance people's functioning. Behavior analysis is a therapeutic intervention, and the focus is typically on the domains of social skills, social interactions, communication skills, academic skills, and other kinds of skills of adaptive functioning. They can be used in kids, adolescents, and adults. The BCBA works with clients, sometimes with their families as well, in goal setting, creating treatment protocols, and as well as monitoring change to make sure that people are achieving the goals that they set out. They'll design a program, referring to a curricula. They'll collect data. They'll write reports. They typically supervise assistant behavior analysts and behavior technicians. Routinely, the BCBA will design the intervention. The behavior technician will deliver it, and then collect the data, give it back to the behavior analyst. The analyst will make decisions about how to tweak the protocol, make adjustments to it, add things, take things away, and so on. Currently, most U.S. states require a license to be to practice behavior analysis. That's in the past that was not the case. It's a highly professional field now. The first step to getting licensed is getting the board certified behavior analyst credential, which comes from the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. In order to get that credential, you have to have a master's degree. Other kinds of requirements, there's a range from 1,500 to 2,000 hours of supervised experience, in addition to passing a passing score on the BCBA exam. Now, shifting gears away from practice, there are professionals called operations research analysts. These are individuals sometimes called management scientists or people who engage in management science. These are research jobs. These are people who take a scientific or experimental approach to analyzing problems. They're going to use math, statistics, and computer scientists to quantify issues, and then take that quantitative data and use it to recommend how decisions should be made. Operations analysts are going to study problems, operationalize variables, gather data, analyze that data, and work to develop solutions. You can find operations analysts, although they may be called different things, in all kinds of work settings. So there are operations research analysts in the military, government, business, industry. Based on job ads, I've seen the terminology operations analysts a little more often in the military and the government, and policy analysts more often in government and nonprofits, as well as certain areas of business and industry. A graduate degree in quantitative areas like experimental, quantitative, and psychometrics, sometimes even cognitive psychology, is going to give you the math skills, the stats skills, the data analytics skills needed for a career in this area. Being a research analyst, it's essential that you have, since you're going to be writing reports and presenting them to your organization, it requires excellent communication skills. Doing the research and analysis requires solid communication skills involving including, and this will be something you'll see in job ads in this area, the ability to use a variety of different software packages. Computer science, business, information systems, and management courses are all going to be helpful for jobs in this area. Another area is systems analysis and systems architecture. Systems analysts help companies to make decisions about the software that they're going to be using in order to achieve their goals. So the analyst is going to, do some assessment of the organization and its needs in terms of software, and they're going to make recommendations as to the right software to meet those needs, customizing it as they need to. The systems analyst is going to work with the IT department to integrate computer systems, making sure that all the software works together. I know from experience, when you have an organization that has software that doesn't talk to other software, it can be really problematic and inefficient. So the job of the systems analyst is to make sure that works well and pretty seamlessly. Systems architects are going to be that person or people who are responsible for the information technology approach taken by the entire organization. So they're going to help their organization to select technology tools like the network, the infrastructure tools to meet their computing needs. I think of one, this is not the best example, but right now we just had an email come to us, all of us faculty, asking, how many of you actually use a CD drive on the computers in our classrooms? That's a systems architect kind of problem where you're trying to decide what do we need in terms of the actual tools that we use in computing. Beyond that, there are all kinds of bigger picture problems, like, what kind of network do we need? How fast do we need that network to be? All of those infrastructure things. When do we need to wire and rewire our computer systems? Data architects and database administrators. Data architects are going to figure out approaches to managing digital information. As our country and most of the industrialized world is highly, highly digitized now. We're very, very data driven, and a lot of our data is housed not on paper anymore, but in digital form. What that means is that you're going to have someone who organizes that data so it's usable by organizations. And by usable, I mean you need to be able to access that information, ask questions of it, and determine what kind of next steps are required. The data architect is the person who's going to design those technology systems and databases, putting the data in a form that allows for acquiring the information, manipulating it, doing statistical analyses on it, and so on. The architects are going to be tasked with building databases that can be navigated easily by people with little or no training, or depending on the nature of the organization, with a reasonable amount of training so that people can get the information that they need. The database administrator is going to be the person who implements the data architect's plan, and is actually the day-to-day person who in the organization deals with the databases. So they set them up, they test them, they make updates and repairs, and so on. Database administrators are going to be the person who is responsible for making sure that databases work. They're going to be responsible for doing backups and archival production, and ensuring that databases are secure. And this is particularly critical in privacy relevant areas where you have people's personal information at stake. Actuaries are individuals primarily in the insurance and financial space of using statistics, using mathematical models to estimate risk. So things like risk of death, risk of injury, property loss, financial risk, and so on. What they do is to collect data, analyze it, and determine who will and will not get coverage for certain kinds of losses. So, for example, if you look at you're an actuary in California, maybe one of your jobs is going to be to determine where are the highest risk areas for forest fires destroying property, and those highest risk areas are areas where you're highly unlikely to be given the opportunity to purchase insurance on a structure in that space. Or if you go, down where hurricanes are really, really highly likely, the actuary is going to be involved in creating the mathematical models for determining who's most at risk of suffering hurricane damage. And that will be used to determine whether or not people can get insurance or how expensive that insurance is. Some actuaries are also employed in financial institutions, and their work in those spaces are designed to minimize risks of high cost. So they're going to want to keep that at a minimum. Some of these individuals are consultants working in private practice. All actuaries need to have a strong background in math and statistics, and graduate degree holders who have a lot of background in experimental and quantitative psychology have excellent opportunities in these areas. In terms of advanced degrees, there is a trend in the direction of requiring a master's degree. Although that's not always required, there are some ground level, entry level positions that people can begin with and move their way up. Many actuaries have, master's degrees in data analysis, in statistics. Some have, computer science degrees where they are well versed in a variety of different programming languages, because they are often involved in, having to structure databases so that they can ask and answer questions. Financial analysts, sometimes called security analysts or investment analysts, these are individuals who give organizations guidance in making investments. So here, you're not so much talking about understanding human behavior as your first point of reference, but human beings interact with the markets. I hear reports all the time on NPR about how market volatility is really about the psychology of investing. So financial analysts have an advantage if they have a solid understanding of how people perceive risk, how they make decisions, and so on. So financial analysts, they have a lot of skill in being able to gather information that helps people, could be banks, insurance companies, pension funds, and so on, to give them guidance in making investments. They tend to pull together a lot of financial information, combining data, looking at financial statements, looking at prices, tax rates, and so on, in order to make good recommendations to organizations about their financial decisions. They can give recommendations about avoiding risk and maximizing assets. They're going to evaluate financial data, looking at trends in order to recommend strategies for investment. Having a broad background in statistics is going to be really helpful here. I actually have one former student who's a financial analyst, and he has told me that the fact that he went into his advanced training to become a financial analyst, the fact that he had advanced training in statistics and data analysis put him ahead of the game in a comparison to some of his classmates who were studying the same thing, because he had a solid understanding of how do you deal with data and make sense of it, ask questions of it, manipulate it, and so on. Some financial analysts are required now to be licensed. Like many of the industries that we've touched on in other chapters, we're seeing increasing demands that people who are working as professionals have credentials that show that they have training and that they do continuing education to stay up to date. So licensure can be sought through the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. Some educational considerations and the possibility for master's level careers. Having a competency and expertise in quantitative analysis, in research design, is really valuable in a wide range of settings. I have lost count now of the number of students who've graduated from our programs who have turned their understanding, their knowledge of quantitative research and qualitative research, research design, data analysis, into an asset in their work in insurance, in financial management, in banking, in real estate even, a bunch of different career paths. Their basic quantitative skills have been incredibly valuable for them. Now, in some cases, doctoral level training can be helpful. These tend to be more academic type positions or research positions at large organizations. But there are a lot of master's degree opportunities out there in these areas. So we're starting to see many people accessing general experimental psychology master's degrees. Some of those master's degrees are even specialized to some of these careers that we've described in this chapter. And that concludes my coverage of Chapter 10.